Welcome back from that break, and you're still watching Digital Science for You. Now we get to head back to the lesson where you'll be learning plenty more. We will see you right after the lesson.
Take a look at this insect. There we have bees going around brightly colored flowers. Their hairy legs. Their hairy legs can carry pollen grains from one flower to the next flower, thus pollination taking place. Now let's consider wind pollination. For wind pollination, there are also certain features that a flower must have in order for wind to carry out pollination. One of these is that the flower must produce pollen grains that are light to be carried by the wind. 2, the pollen grains must be feathery so that they can kind of fly in the wind. And then these pollen grains are produced on a pendulous anther that is able to swing in the air so that wind can blow off the pollen grains. I can see that you can't even imagine what these pollen grains could look like. When I say pendulous, but thanks to digital science, let's take a look again at this. Here we have flowers that are producing here we have plants that are producing tiny flowers, grass-like plants like rice, grass, millet. They're producing large numbers of pollen grains. You can see the pendulous anther, and it is going to release its pollen grains into the air. Take a look at that, take a look at that. The pollen grains there go flying in the air to the next plant that is waiting to receive them on its stigma. And that will be wind pollination. Thanks to digital science, everything is made much easier. Biology is brought right from the field into the classroom, and no student can ever forget this. From what we have so far discussed about the agents of pollination being insects and wind, we can now draw a comparison by looking at a table such as this that is offered with our digital science. Here on one side we have insect pollinated flowers, and on the other side we have wind pollinated flowers. Number 1, on the side of insect pollinated flowers, there are flowers that are conspicuous. Conspicuous means large and easy to see. Take a look at this flower even from a distance. Because it is large and very white, it is easy to notice it. That is what we mean by being conspicuous. While for the wind pollinated flowers, we said they are inconspicuous. They are dull and not easily seen. For example, look at this grain. Its color is not very attractive and the flower is very small, so it is inconspicuous. Number 2, we say for insect pollinated flowers, they are sweet scented with nectaries. I told you that sometimes the bee goes to visit the flower just because it is looking for that food, the sweet nectar. While for the wind pollinated flowers, the flowers are not scented and they do not have honey glands and nectaries. Difference number 3, for insect pollinated flowers, the stamens are contained within the flower. We can again look at this. The stamen simply means the male parts of the flower, and that is the anther. Here you can see that in this flower, the anthers are within the flower. While within wind pollinated flowers, the stamens may be outside of the flower. Yes, there you see the stamens. You can see the anthers falling out of the flower. That is what we mean by the stamens being out of the flower to aid wind pollination. And number 4, the stigma for insect-pollinated flowers. The stigma is flat and lobe-shaped for the insect to land on, because an insect has some weight. So the stigma has to be firm enough for the insect to land on it. That is characteristic of insect-pollinated flowers. Whereas for wind-pollinated flowers, the stigma is just usually long and feathery to trap the pollen grains. Soft, long, feathery. All it needs to be able to do is trap the pollen grains. Difference number 5, the pollen grains for insect-pollinated flowers. Pollen grains are spiky and attached to the legs, the wings, and the body of the insect easily. You remember, the pollen grains are spiky, they are sticky, and they're able to stick on the body of the insect. They can stick on its legs, they can stick on its wings, and there we can see as the insect is within the flower, it is able to carry off the pollen grains. Whereas for wind-pollinated flowers, we look at difference number 5. For wind-pollinated flowers, the pollen grains are just smooth, because they don't have to stick on any surface to carry them. It is just wind blowing them about. Look at difference number 6. These flowers that are insect pollinated produce small amounts of pollen grains. Small amounts of pollen grains. Whereas the wind pollinated flowers produce large amounts of pollen grains, because they are going to be blown in the wind, and to increase the chances of pollination, they have to be a lot. Of course, some of them may not land on any stigma. Some of them may not land on any stigma, thus pollination may not take place. So really, I think all of you can agree that digital science makes biology very interesting, the most interesting subject you can study.
That's been it from Digital Science for You. Now remember, Digital Science for You is the show, while Digital Science and Virtual Lab is the software which you can access via our main offices in Lugogo, via the UMA Show ground, and also students. You get to learn this easily. As for the teachers, you get to teach with no hassle. You can also follow us on our Facebook and Twitter. That is at CSTSUG. And you can also access us on those telephone numbers right below your screens. I've been your host, Nicholas Noah Travubi. Until next time on that episode from another subject using digital science and virtual lab.